So I have never recorded a Laphroaig video on this channel before. And the reason is basically that everyone else has already done it for me at this point. I mean, we are a good, decade and a half into YouTube Spirits videos at this point. And I feel like everyone has already done the Laphroaig thing. How many variations on bandages and medicinal and seaside and peaty, smoky adjectives can you come up with? But I wanted to make an exception in this case because there are now two releases back to back in the same series that really could not be more different in their character, and it felt like it would be fun to talk about them. So these are both Càirdeas Laphroaigs, which is basically their so it's more or less the Laphroaig equivalent of, you know, the Ardbeg limited releases where they can kind of justify putting out younger whiskeys by way of some sort of special gimmick. This is basically kind of the same story with Laphroaig, and oof, Jesus, look at that! Look at that color. Oh God. Yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Good God Almighty. So, like the Ardbeg releases, these starting out as very, you know, small scale things for the nerds and for the collectors, and they have now sort of infiltrated the global shelves. All right, what is special about these two is the 2022 Càirdeas is, which they're calling Warehouse 1, was entirely matured in that titular warehouse, and all in simple first fill bourbon barrels from Maker's Mark. The 2021 edition, so last year's edition, the Pedro Ximénez cask was actually triple matured in bourbon, and then quarter cask, and then Pedro Ximénez casks. So we should talk about these because I think they express two different directions that whiskey has been headed. I mean, whiskey that is not just like low ABV mass market crap has been heading in for the last couple of years, and that I want you to pay attention to. All right, let's get some notes on the table, and then maybe I'll talk about my personal history with Laphroaig after I add water and we wait for these things to open up. Okay, I'm going to do the Warehouse 1 first. Laphroaig Càirdeas Warehouse 1 2022 Islay single malt Scotch whiskey. This is bottled at 52.2% alcohol by volume. Again, first fill, Maker's Mark mass. The gimmick here is Warehouse 1 is right next to the sea. And apparently the air inside is so corrosive that they can't leave casks in there for very long. Otherwise, like the metal bindings that keep the barrels together basically rot. They rust off. So, but these, the barrels that went into these, into this bottling, were entirely matured in Warehouse 1. So that tells you, first of all, they can't be especially old. But also, we're looking for a very, you know, briny maritime character here. All right, let's start to stick our nose into this. Laphroaig Warehouse 1. On the nose, it's by Laphroaig standards. This is surprisingly subtle. It's very delicate. It's I've had my fair share of younger Laphroaigs, even outside of the official bottling range, and they tend to be loud, loud, loud. This is not that. I mean, it's definitely peaty. It's got a little bit of a medicinal character to it, but it's really kind of, you know, turned down, as Little John would say, and very, very kind of maritime. Like, you're getting the brine. You're getting, really, first of all, like crushed shells. Like this smells like just like sand and seashells and rocks and sea air, and then yeah, the peat, not as medicinal as you would expect from like the standard range. And a good old touch of vanilla in there too, like just a little dab of simple vanilla essence. It's lightly floral, like maybe there's some flowers growing on that seashore. There's a kind of beyond the seashells sand thing. There's something else. There's something almost metallic, like a rusty penny or something. Maybe like a graham cracker in there from the Maker's Mark casks. White pepper, maybe like one old bandage. It's really not very medicinal. It's just very understated and gentle. Okay, here we go on the palate. Okay, again, it's just very, very, very seasidey Laphroaig. But again, it's so much more understated than you think it's going to be. It's really driven more by this, I don't know, this minerally, slightly peppery creaminess than it is by traditional Laphroaig flavors of, medicinal peat. So lots of black pepper, lots of seawater, seashells, that little touch of peat, like maritime peat. Just a touch of fresh bandages, more black pepper, some coal smoke as well. Some like just overtly industrial smoky notes. Smoke it's there, but it's not, what I think of with like just usual Laphroaig peat fiery stuff. There's almost a Del Maguey Vida kind of vibe to this thing. Vanilla beans again. Touch of aniseed, actually. Like a s'more. And the mouthfeel is very nice. It's very peppery. It's very creamy. If you could make cream out of rocks, this is kind of what it would taste like. It's nice. It's subtle. It's a little bit puzzling because you can kind of tell it's all about the distillate, but this is basically a young. It's a young whiskey. I would doubt this is more than, I don't know, 6-7 years old tops, which is not bad. But they're also charging, like, at least in Chicago, about $100 a bottle for this stuff. And unless it really starts to show up with water, I don't know if I can justify that price point. All right, this is, I'm going to add some water to this and come back to it. It's only 52 odd percent, so I'm not going to be, drowning in or anything. No, just a hair more, just a little bit more. All right, we'll come back to that. And here is the contrasting case study. This is the 2021 Laphroaig Càirdeas, Pedro Ximénez cask. Again, initially aged in bourbon cask, then they threw it into quarter casks, and then they threw it into Pedro Ximénez casks for a finish. So triple mature. So it's like the what is it? The triple cask, but you're switching out that last part for PX instead of Oloroso or wherever it is. 2021. This is a bit stronger, 58.9% alcohol by volume. Instantly, the 52 that feels very normal for me for something that's going to just a warehouse that's just going to be very damp. Like you're just going to lose a lot of ABV aging anything there. And good God, look at that color. Can I hold these side by side? Look at the difference in color here. This is first fill bourbon cask. So this is as dark as like a 6-7 year old whiskey in a first fill bourbon cask gets. This is, God only knows what this is. All right, let's maybe it'll surprise me. Maybe it won't be what I think it'll be, but we'll see. Oh my God. Okay. I mean, it smells like a wood bomb. That's most of what I'm getting. It reminds me a little bit of, well, a lot of what you get elsewhere in the Beam Centauri range, in Auchentoshan and Bowmore, where they're just trying to take a very characterful, weird spirit and just load up as much oak as they possibly can on top of it. And Laphroaig kind of comes through. It's still, I mean, it's Laphroaig. You're not going to bury Laphroaig, right? But, I mean, it's sort of certainly like distorting that character. I mean, this smells, I mean, it maybe a little bit like, my closest point of reference, oh, so I was going to say, like Bowmore 18 or something, where the Bowmore's just been smothered. My closest point of reference is actually Balcones. Yeah, this honestly smells like Balcones. It's got that kind of note of like old leather sautéed in balsamic vinegar and molasses. It's got that thing going on. Except I think Balcones does it better. This feels like the elements in there just aren't quite... it feels a little unbalanced. Let's just leave it at that. Tons of black pepper, over-brewed coffee, over-stewed tea, just lots of oaky notes. Couple of burned figs in there, like you just toasted up some figs, but there's less dried fruity character than I would expect from a PX finish. And the more you spend your time with this, the more Laphroaig kind of comes out. Not so much the peatiness, but the kind of, again, the crushed sea cells, the briny air thing. It starts to come out, which is nice. A little bit of like, you know, smoky coal smoke / peat comes out after a moment. It just feels a little constrained, probably because it's just had a mountain of oak dropped on top of it. Yeah, it just feels like it feels like they tried to make a somewhat anonymous, blue label-y modern whiskey with, and like the Laphroaig is kind of unhappy with that and fighting back a little bit. But let's see what happens on the palate. Oh. So technically it's not bad, but wow, is this like, nope, this is not for me. So you got that Balcones sautéed leather thing, mingling with the medicinal peat seawater thing you get from Laphroaig. And man, I really don't think that works very well. Black pepper, cacao, coffee, tea, vanilla, but there's something, it's like vanilla creamer, like vanilla coffee creamer that you get in your hotel next to the Keurig, like one of those things. A little dried fruit, dried cherry, figs, coal smoke. And just got some kind of like raw wood kinds of notes. No, it's like a mix of raw wood and burned wood. So it's like, you know, you've got your green wood over here that's very kind of green and gingery, and you've got your like just, you know, burned campfire leftovers over here. There's a lot of flavor here, but man, like, it just oof. Like there's just a lot, and I don't feel like it's entirely coherent. Okay, let's add water to this and see what happens. What I'm worried is that the water is going to bring out the oak even more. So let's hope not. Or if that's, you know, your jam, then maybe you can hope so. Half a squirt more. All right, I'm going to go back to the warehouse one now that my palate has been thoroughly thrashed by that PX cask one. Man. Okay, back to the warehouse one. Oh wait, no, I was going to tell you a little bit about my history with Laphroaig, wasn't I? Okay, so, you know, Laphroaig was one of my first grabs back as a novice Scotch drinker, and I was never okay. The problem with the old Laphroaig range back before Centauri got a hold of it and things started to explode was, you really didn't need anything beyond the 10-year-old Cask Strength. Like, the 10-year-old Cask Strength was so good. Like, it was the best $60 you could spend your money on in a liquor store, honestly. It was so good that you would just look at the regular 10-year-old, which is, a hair bit thin, and you would look at the quarter cask, which was maybe like just a hair bit too desserty, vanilla-y, and you didn't really need them. You could just buy a bottle of the Cask Strength for your Laphroaig experiences. Could you dip into independent bottlings? Yes, of course you could, but that was really all you needed. And I bought that thing religiously, like every year or so. For a long time, it started to maybe dip a little bit and get a little bit more raw. So I kind of dropped off a couple of years ago, and then they upped the price on me, and now you can't find it anymore. Anyway, so that was kind of my Laphroaig experience, and here I am now, kind of coming back to it, looking over the range and going, well, what the heck happened? It's a lot of interesting woods. And, it's we shall not talk about Laphroaig Select. We shall not talk about that. And suddenly, like, the standard Laphroaig Cask Strength 10-year-old is nowhere to be found in the shelves. So, I haven't been buying a lot of Laphroaig recently, despite the fact that I've always loved it. Anyhow, just a little bit of background from me. Now, these things have had some time while I've been yapping. Let's go back to the Warehouse 1, see what happens. On the nose. Ooh. So it hasn't changed a whole lot. It's still extremely subtle. I was hoping maybe like the distillate would come out and be more assertive with water, but that isn't really what's happened. It's still very subtle. It's just a different kind of subtlety now. It's there's a little bit more grassiness happening now. So it's, you're on the seashore, but there's like a big old patch of, grass next to you. A little bit of fennel coming through. Now the vanilla and the graham crackers are still there. The peat it's still present, but it's almost withdrawn a little bit. You come to this, if you come to this bottling looking for like a big old smoke bomb, you're going to be disappointed. But there's something to this that reminds me a little bit of a lowland whiskey, actually, or even like the what was it, the that Ben Romack, the peat smoke, which was not really particularly peat smoke. It was just very lowland whiskey-y. That's kind of what's going on here. It's just it's definitely driven by the sea air and the seashells and the rocks and but I kind of love that. I like this little guy. All right, let's see what's happening in the palate. Oh. So most of what the water does is really extend the finish and fatten out the mouthfeel. I was talking about it being creamy and kind of like creamy, rocky, peppery before, and it's really just kind of, with water, done much more of that. Let me try this again, but it's also a little bit more grassy and a little bit more fennel-driven, almost an anise kind of thing coming out. Yeah, that's really nice. It's very subtle and very beautiful and pleasant. There isn't really a whole lot going on because this is so young. The sum of flavors is maybe a hair bit limited. You're getting sort of the cask influence, the vanillas, the kind of graham crackery stuff. You're getting the Laphroaig distillate. You're getting your peatiness. And I think the grassiness, too, is where that's coming from, the kind of floral notes. And you're getting that sea air from the Warehouse. But that's kind of it. These haven't really had time to develop the more complex tertiary notes, which is where the fun really starts. That being said, this is really quite nice anyhow. I'm going to give this 86 points. I mean, and I like it. Do I think it's worth a hundo? No, I can't really get there. I can't really justify that. But I really, and please listen to what I'm saying. Even if you are a Laphroaig maniac, do not come to this expecting like the last word in peaty medicinal explosiveness. It's not that. It is absolutely not that. This is creamy and subtle and maritime. $86 points. All right, let's move on to the Pedro Ximénez cask, now with water. Pray for me. Let's get this going. On the nose. Okay, now that the PX starts to come out, that sort of an obnoxious grape syrup kind of thing. Ooh. Yeah, so grape syrup, maybe a little bit of like burned cherry kind of thing. And underneath that, you're still getting the Balcones molasses balsamic vinegar leather thing. Even the peat is mostly undetectable now, at least on the nose. There is a smoky character, but it's the kind of Balcones-y smoky character, that sort of just wood on top of wood on top of wood kind of thing. Okay. All right. Here we go. On the palate. Some people are really going to like this. They're just going to like the quantity of flavors kind of involved here, particularly the quantity of oaky flavors, of like woody cask flavors, the secondary, flavors. I'm just kind of a little bit like I'm trying to find the plot, if that makes sense. With water, the wood does indeed come out. There's lots more kind of ashy tannic stuff happening now. There's a nice kind of sour cherry note that's kind of emerged into the smoky, overstewed tea coffee stuff, which I like. I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. It's barely detectable as a Laphroaig anymore. You can tell that there might be a peaty whiskey underneath all of that, but like I would struggle to see people like pick Laphroaig in a blind, especially after you've added water to it. It just doesn't. It just feels synonymous now. That being said, some people are really going to like this. Some people are absolutely going to love this, what is in my glass right now. I could see scores pushing 90. I just find it like kind of overdone and unbalanced. Certainly not bad though. It's just, it is what it is. But certainly not bad. Score-wise, I mean, I'm going to call this... I don't hate it. It's... In its genre, it's sort of good. So I'm going to call this an 83. But I'm going to give this an 83 with a wood emoji. I don't use the emojis very often, but in this case I have to. 83 wood emoji. So yeah, that is the scores here. Both of these costing about a hundo. Neither one, I can't really see either one worth it. But these do represent the twin directions you can kind of see, quote unquote, craft whiskey going in. On the one hand, you've got something like this. It's a bit overpriced. It's a bit too young. It could use a couple more years under its belt. But it's basically just letting a very good, characterful distillate do its thing in casks that aren't really getting in the way. And on the other hand, the other direction is something like this, where you're basically pounding the distillate with as much wood as you possibly can, because you can write all that in the label, right? And it looks good. People like to see finishes. They love to see finishes and labels. I myself am really done with finishes. I've been done with finishes for 5-6 years now. I was done with finishes back in the Obama administration. But I feel like, look, same producer is coming out with both of these. Both are expensive. Both of these are pretty young. But you can choose which way to go, but with your own monetary consumer decisions. And one perfectly valid consumer decision is not to buy either one and to go elsewhere. Thanks for watching. That's all I got. Join me next time, and cheers.